I'd like to start off with some background first. This event was organized by the PlantGENE graduate, postdoc, and technician network volunteers, also referred to as the GPT volunteers, so it's a little less of a mouthful. We held a launch event in the spring, and attendees filled out a survey about their interest. An industry career panel had the most interest from the survey responses we got, so the GPT volunteers got to work planning this event. And I would like to introduce today's panelists briefly. First is Annie Saltarikos, who is the Senior Vice President of Research and Development at Plastomics. Annie has also had leadership roles in Monsanto and Bayer's plant biotechnology divisions. Our second panelist is Morgan McCaw. Morgan joined Ohalo Genetics in 2020 to lead the maize boosted breeding program. Since 2020, Ohalo Genetics has grown from 5 full-time employees to over 80 and has novel breeding systems for a variety of crops. Our third panelist is Zoe Dubrow. Zoe joined Pairwise in 2021 and is a scientist on the delivery technology team. She graduated from Cornell University and was a USDA pre-doctoral fellow. Fourth is Frank McFarland, who is a postdoctoral visiting scientist in plant genome engineering at Corteva Agriscience. And actually that is his old title because he just started a new position. I think on Monday, you said, Frank, so congratulations. And he's previously working with Dr. Bill Gordon-Cam on maize leaf transformation. Our fifth panelist is Peizhen, who is a Bayer Science Fellow, as well as a Technology Innovation Lead in Plant Biotechnology at Bayer Crop Science. Peizhen has worked at Monsanto/Bayer for 13 years, and she currently serves as a mentor in the Bayer University Mentoring Program. Our final panelist is Jitendra Kumar. He's also a scientist at Bayer. He works on developing tissue culture and transgene-free genome editing methods, for a variety of species. And before joining Bayer, Jitendra was a postdoc and a researcher at the University of Minnesota. So we are going to start with Annie, and then the rest of our panelists can answer this question. Annie, what attracted you to Plastomics and your current position?
Great. Thanks, Amy. Thanks for the question. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on your time zone. So what attracted me to Plastomics is I've only been at Plastomics for the last couple of months. I started in July here of 2024. Previous to that, my experience had been at Monsanto and Bayer for the previous 15 years. And really what attracted me to the Plastomics was really the opportunity to be at a startup company. I had spent at, most of my experience was at a larger company, Monsanto and then Bayer. And so I was really excited about the opportunity to work in a team of people that are trying to do some really interesting and cool science, but one that is challenging and applications that have a lot of value. And so those kind of combinations and kind of thinking about, how do we do this in a startup kind of community space was really attractive to me at this point in my career. And it was an experience I hadn't had and one that I wanted to have. And so also just being here in the St. Louis, Missouri environment, the ag tech space here is really exciting. So I also get the opportunity to work with a lot of other companies as well and kind of some of those partnerships. And it's a very dynamic space. So kind of that exciting opportunity is what attracted me to this position.
Thanks. Morgan, you are next in line on my Zoom if you would like to answer the question. What attracted you to your current company and position?
Yeah, so I ended up getting a job flyer for a company I never heard of. And I tried to figure out what they were doing because the job seemed like a good fit. And I looked at LinkedIn, and then they actually reached out to me and said, hey, you should give a talk. And so I did. And I met the people there, and they all seemed really cool. I still didn't know what they were working on, but then they gave me a little hint. and then I was sold. So came out here to California, and from the Midwest. I was planning on spending my whole life in the Midwest, but yeah, came out here and it's been great.
Awesome. Nice change of scenery then. Zoe?
Yeah, so I joined Pairwise a little over 3 years ago, and our mission here is to build a healthier world through better fruits and vegetables, and that's really what drew me in. I thought it was, something that we had talked about, I talked about for so many years was so important to me, and being able to actually contribute to products that would be on the shelves at grocery stores that, you could go and have like these really nice, tasty fruits that would be easier to snack on, was something that I felt really strongly about. So that's what really drew me in.
I'm really excited to try the seedless blackberries.
Really excited.
Yeah, looking forward to those. Peizhen.
So I joined the legacy Monsanto, and at the time it was the idea Monsanto has been talking about producing more, conserving more, and improving life, and that really speaks to what I'm thinking. And I think it's very similar to what Zoe talking about, supply the world with better foods and improving people's life. And I currently, like Bayer, also have a very similar ideation around a science for better life, and that basically expand the scope from ag, also including pharmaceutical and consumer health, and that's what attract me to my current role. And the teams are awesome. I love working with the people and lots of collaboration, and get to see like different aspect of talents and how we work together to make products. So thank you.
Thanks. Jitendra?
So I'll answer this question in two parts. First of all, I'm very new to industry. I started at Bayer January 2024. So just few months into industry role. So first, why I got attracted to Bayer. I was a research scientist at the University of Minnesota, and being a research scientist, I got into Bayer for University Mentorship Program last year, which was in 2023. And before getting into that program, I didn't think of industry. I wasn't not even thinking, or it didn't exist in my mind. So I was fully academic person. Then I got into this program and I got exposed to industry, especially Bayer, because I had visited to multiple Bayer sites. I got to know how industry worked. I was amazed with that experience, and that changed my thought, the way I thought about industry. So that's what attracted me to industry and Bayer. Then second part is position. So I have very diverse background. Like I have worked in entomology, virology, plant pathology, gene editing, microscopy, everything that you do with plant, I have done. So the current position needed everything. So it needed experience in everything like cell biology, entomology, virology, microscopy, everything. So I thought this is perfect fit for me. And I applied for this position in August 2023. And then I was selected in November. So this was pretty fast, since I analyzed before applying that this is good fit for me. And here is where I can grow myself.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. It's been such a good experience for you. And I think we'll definitely talk a little bit more about kind of your transition and what changed your mind there from about industry. Frank, what attracted you to your current company and position?
Well, when I was wrapping up my PhD, I had heard that Bill's group was looking to hire some postdocs to work on somatic embryogenesis and maize leaf transformation. And that's one of my real key interests. It's something that I'm really passionate about and very interested in. I mean, my PhD was largely on doing that in maize. And so he pitched this project to me, and we got to incorporate all these new technologies and have access to all these fun resources that you get access to in industry. And that was really what attracted me to the company, was just specifically this project and working with Bill. And I'd say it's worked out pretty well so far. But I started in January 2023.
Great, thank you, everyone. So our second question, I'm going to start with Morgan, and then we'll just go down the line, Zoe, Peizhen, Jitendra, Frank, and end with Annie. So Morgan, what was your transition like from academia into industry?
So yeah, it was kind of a unique transition because it's a small startup company. So I was a postdoc in Con Wong's lab, and you know, all the equipment was there. We had projects, you know, I was in charge of my project. But moving to industry, basically I got a lot more resources, but also had to wear a lot of hats, building out a whole lab, everything that I needed to do this project and building out the project and the planning, and then started managing people. So it was a big change. And then it was also in the middle of COVID. So that kind of shook things up more.
Yeah, definitely a big change here as well. I was planning to go into academia, so I had a USDA postdoctoral fellowship. But I decided to, you know, look around and see what else is out there. And when I found this position at Pairwise, it was just so exciting and seemed like something that would be a really good choice. And so the move was pretty fast, where, you know, between like getting the job and moving down here and getting started. And I think people at startups often say that, you know, the first month or so is like drinking from a fire hose, like everything's coming at you really, really quickly. There's so much to learn, so much to do. I think that's a really exciting time because you are learning so much so fast. So it can be a lot, but I think is a great time, and I felt well prepared for that. And your PhD, you wear so many hats as well, right? You're trying to do so many things. And similarly in industry, there's a lot of things that you're learning, trying to do. And so being able to balance that, I think, is really important.
And I can agree with both of you anymore, because I would say I have very, very similar experience, like starting in industry. And at the time, like I think I interviewed in April and start in August, and it was really fast. The transition is quite smooth, I would say. The lab I was in, both the lab manager and lab mates, they are so helpful, like explaining all the rules and expectations. And very, very similar to both of you, like I was very impressed by the detail and the broad spectrum of the functional group that could support our research. And the other part I would say a little bit shocking to me is the IP landscape. Like when I was in academia, I was like, okay, I read this paper, this is really cool, I'm going to do the research. And that was a little bit adjustment. It's like, okay, now we need to look at for freedom to operate before we could actually do anything. So but overall, I would say the experience was really, really good. The transition is quite smooth. Jitendra, I think I
Okay.
passed on, right?
Yeah, sorry, if we were in person, you know, you just have the microphone that you pass on down. But
Okay.
yeah, Jitendra, what was your transition like from academia into industry?
I think I'm still going through it. So I'm still adjusting so many things because I have been in academia for so long, like 15 years. So, and just few months into industry role. So in being in academia, I was used to wrapping up stories, finishing the exploration, wrapping up the stories, publishing or patenting whatever you get. So I was that way. Now I work in industry. It's a very much matrix. So you collaborate like academia, but also you don't start and don't finish. You come in middle, or you start and someone else will finish. So it's different. Also, like Peizhen mentioned, freedom to operate. So in academia, you can pick anything and do, but here you have to know if you have license to do that or not. So yeah, I'm still learning, but my transition has been very smooth. I work for a very good team, I also work with Peizhen sometimes. So yeah, I have very good experience, and I would say excellent experience moving to industry.
Thanks. Yeah, I saw Zoe when she mentioned, it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. Saw a lot of nods there. So busy time for you. And then Frank and then Annie, what was your transition like from academia into industry?
Yeah, I would say I largely in agreement with a lot of things everyone else is saying. It's pretty overwhelming. I'd say mainly because at the start you have all these systems you have to kind of learn how they work and how to submit things and make requests. Like for me at least, I was in grad school I was having to do my own cloning and make my own media and do all these things. And now there's all these systems that you can request them, but you have to learn how to use all the systems. You have to figure out how all these different processes work. So I'd say there's a learning curve there. In terms of actually doing the research part of my job, I'd say it was a pretty smooth transition where I started doing experiments really quick and kind of got to start jumping into that aspect. But the getting familiar with the sort of structure that's in place, the pre-existing structure took a bit more time.
Yeah, maybe just to add in a couple more points. I agree with what the panelists have already said, but I think for me, maybe one point that wasn't maybe brought out yet that I noticed right away too is that I think that transition from academia to industry, for me, it was like, wow, there's all these resources and I could do everything I've always wanted to do. I think there's that temptation to kind of really go really big, really fast. And I think for me, what I learned right off the bat is focus. Really, what are the goals? What are we trying to do? What can I get done with the time that I have allocated to me and the resources that I have? And so I think for that, it was like kind of being able to put, that focus piece on and not get almost distracted sometimes by the opportunity, because I think that's to be successful. I think that's part of that transition. Sometimes you can't work on everything, so you have to make some of those decisions. And I think people come to that of their, and their own timing. But I think that was really important. And maybe one other thing, I think kind of a funny story for me is I worked on plant transformation for both my master's and my PhD before coming to industry. But the biggest thing, just to touch on what Frank said, we used a lot of acronyms, and we do at my current company, but in Monsanto and Bayer too, where we use acronyms for almost everything. And I was like, what are we talking about? So that fire hose kind of thing, it was like being able to just kind of understand the language and the systems that we use. I think that's a steep learning curve at whatever company you're at. And so I think that's some of the things too that it took a minute to kind of adapt to it and learn. But I think, again, your career can be really big. And so it's taking those opportunities then and being able to focus and deliver results. I think it's pretty exciting. So I'll just add that last piece.
Thanks, everyone. I think that was really insightful. And you guys kind of pointed out some of the really positive aspects of working in industry too. Our next question is, how much time did you spend on your job search, and when did you start applying relative to when you graduated? And we'll start with Zoe.
Yeah, so I started applying maybe 6 months before I graduated, where I had sort of a flexible graduation date, and I could have started a little bit earlier or a little bit later. I was planning on going into academia, so I didn't feel, a really strong pressure that I needed to find something. But it's something that when the job that I was interested in came up, it was about the right timing, where there was maybe 2 months in between when I had applied to that and when I could really graduate. And so that seemed to be a good amount of time in between.
So I was a little different because I did, as some of you also want to go on academia route after I graduate. So I actually did a few-year postdoc before I start looking for position in industry. To some extent, I would say it's a little bit unique because when I start in industry, originally I started as a contractor, and I did not know what I was getting into, like what Morgan say. It sounds really cool. Those people are very nice. Let's give it a try. So after I started as a contractor, I applied for start looking for roles and within the company, also outside the company, and I say take a couple of months and look for the right role. And that's one thing I want to remind everyone is that look for the role that really speak to you and really you think you are a good fit, because there's lots of opportunity out there, but you only have so much time, right? As Annie say, want to focus, find the right one and go for it. So Jitendra, pass on the mic.
Thank you. Yeah, so for me also it was pretty quick. So I started Bear for University Mentorship Program in April 2023. And then I was exposed to industry. So after that, I started thinking about industry roles because I was really excited after seeing all the different sides of Bear, how the research is done. So that was my motivation. But also coming from a farmer's family, I grew up on farms, so I also, in my heart, in one corner of my heart, I always had, if I could help farmers by doing some great science or research, by developing some variety, that will be one of the achievement of my life. So after coming to mentorship program and then having realized my childhood goals or a dream, I started thinking of industry, started applying. So I started around June 2023. And in August, I applied for my current role and I got it by November. So I didn't spend much time in job search, but what I learned is two things are very important. So one thing I learned, you have to be a good fit, but also another most important thing for a job search is what you are going to learn from that position, how much you will be learning. You have some basic knowledge or experience, but would you be able to build on that? So these two things helped me a lot, and it was like very quick for me.
Thanks. And then we'll pass the mic on to Frank.
Yeah, so I think before I graduated, I started seriously applying to roles about 6 months before when I was intending to graduate. And maybe I applied to a couple roles a little bit before that. But I'd say the 6 month mark is right around where I started more seriously looking, and especially when I was applying to roles that I thought I was a good fit for, like, you know, tailoring my CV more to fit whatever was being asked for in the job description, and because kind of more I'd say more seriously applying rather than just applying to something because I thought it was interesting or because maybe I could get something there. But yeah, and then once I applied, I think it was like some other people said, it was relatively quick once I had applied and then being interviewed to actually then making a decision.
Thanks. We'll pass it on to Annie.
Yeah, I think for me, very similarly to Frank, I started about 6 months applying to jobs before I graduated with my PhD. Maybe a thing that was a little bit different for me, and I want to call out to all the folks that are listening, is at conferences, scientific conferences. If you have an opportunity to attend those, and especially as you're kind of getting closer towards your wrapping up or maybe looking for those opportunities, a lot of times jobs are being advertised at those conferences. And then for me, like 6 months before, I happened to attend a Society for In Vitro Biology meeting because my background was all in plant cell biology and kind of transformation. And I actually met a few folks from Monsanto at the time that were at that conference, and they helped to connect me and say, hey, there's a job actually that we have open or that will be opening soon. And so I ended up applying for that job, and that's the job that I got. I actually got an offer about 3 months actually before I was even finished with my PhD. And so that really helped to kind of drive the focus. And my advisor, Heidi Kepler, was very supportive and made sure supported me to help finish and wrap up. So just want to call that out, as well as that conferences and other places like that, like PlantGENE too, is a great place to kind of get connected and really find opportunities that maybe, to Morgan's kind of first example, sometimes you might find a job that you're not even looking for, and that's can get you connected and kind of see some opportunities that may be the best fit for you. So that's another thing to just call out and think about.
Yeah, so during grad school, I kind of knew that I wanted to move to industry, so I had applied for a couple jobs. Then I ended up getting a postdoc, doing something that I was really interested in, doing gene editing and maize transformation. So I wanted to do that, and early on, my PI told me, if you find a job, don't feel bad about taking it. You don't have to be here for any sort of amount of time. So early on, I did apply for a few jobs. Then I was enjoying the project and kind of paused for a little bit, and then was looking for jobs again. And I figured out I was making some mistakes back in grad school and early postdoc, mostly like applying too late for a job. Like, you really want to apply within the first couple weeks that a job is open, and get your cover letter, your CV all straightened out. Just apply, and it's really like the interview and just getting to the interview. If you apply, the job may still look like it's open 4 months later, or not 4 months, 4 weeks later, but it's really they're already interviewing people. So I kind of made that mistake early on. Yeah.
Thanks. That was a lot of really practical information. It seems like the 6-month mark, it worked for a lot of people, or that was kind of a good time. Definitely a busy time, the end of your PhD, so difficult to kind of juggle everything. But what you do next obviously is super important. And yeah, thanks Annie for mentioning SIVB too. So that's the Society for In Vitro Biology. So I've met Morgan at SIVB. I just saw Peizhen at the last meeting. So PlantGENE always has, or we've had a presence there since we started 2 years ago, and we plan to be at the 2025 meeting in Norfolk. Yeah, and then you'll probably notice that SIVB is in our website URL is plantgene.sivb.org. So we have a contract with them to host our website, and they've been very supportive. They do have a career page, so you can check them out. And then we also have a PlantGENE career page too. So if you go to our website, you can see recent job postings that members submit to us. And so our next question, also related to the job search, was what aspects were non-negotiables and what was something that you had to be flexible on? So just as an example, this could be salary, location, research topic, etc. And we'll start with Peizhen.
So one of the things I would say is definitely non-negotiable when you first started is the research topic, because the company is looking for someone to fill a specific role to advancing on certain projects, and really focus on the product development and very sensitive timeline. So I would say that's one thing that's not very negotiable. In terms of locations, if you are in a wet lab type of role, it's probably you cannot do it remotely, but I do see some new roles posting like with project management or IT, bioinformatics type of role, and I would say those are negotiable. Salary, I think it's negotiable, but you do need to do some background research to see what kinds of range and then propose. But it may work, it may not. So it really depends on the group who is hiring. What's their budget? What's the outcome look like? But really focus on. I think Jitendra talked about this. What you are interested, does this role really fit what you are looking for? And would that give you an opportunity to grow in the area you want to grow into? I think that's kind of what I have. Jitendra.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, and I was going to talk same thing. So for me, when I was looking for a position, the non-negotiable thing was only one thing. Do I have opportunity to explore, learn, and grow? Everything else was negotiable, salary, location, everything else, I didn't mind going anywhere. But yes, so finally I found this role, which was like, I could use all of my experiences and expertise and contribute to the pipeline, help product development. And at the same time, I grow. For example, in my current role, I knew the biology side of microscopy, but I didn't know physics side of microscopy. So now I'm learning that thing. So this I could imagine beforehand and applied. So if you know what you are going to learn, it makes you more fit, and also the hiring person or hiring manager think that you are more serious and you will contribute.
So I would say the position I initially applied for was a postdoc. There isn't very much wiggle room for a salary there, but I did actually negotiate a little bit of a higher pay. So yeah, it really depends on, I think, the project and the resources for the team that you'd be going into. But yeah, for that particular project, the obviously location, I was doing wet lab work, have to be on site for that. For research topic, hired to do a specific project. So in my new role, similarly, there's a specific project, at least at the start, that I'm going to be working on. And so I totally agree with those points. Something that I thought was like or it's something that's important to me that I would say is a non-negotiable, but from my perspective was the sort of team fit and the kind of environment that I'd be going into is really important. So I'm very collaborative. I want to be able to work with lots of people, across different groups. And I like sharing results and talking about things with people at the company now. But that's something that was important to me. So when I was applying to different roles, even if I thought I was technically a good fit, I considered that, above a lot of other factors like the specific project or the compensation, for example.
Annie, will pass the mic to you.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to echo what Frank said. I think from an individual's perspective, I think it's really important for the individual to consider what their non-negotiables are, because, right, that's going to be different depending on where people are in their life too. So, you might be, having a family, you may have other considerations of your spouse or your partner, or, those might be other considerations too of like where you're able to be flexible and where you're not. Agree with the other comments from Peizhen and Jitendra as well, is that some things like salary, you can negotiate somewhat, but like the research topic generally, the role you should look at, make sure it's a great fit for you in terms of your skill set and your interests. I know too, from a perspective of a company, sometimes it's like, well, maybe I'd like to get into the company and then find a job that would be a better skill fit for me. But as a hiring manager, someone looking at that from that perspective, they're looking for someone to fit those specific skill sets and those specific needs. So it's always that balance, right, between what you're looking for and then what the group that you're going into is looking for. So to me, Frank kind of mentioned that team fit and that fit. That's really, really critical and important. I think for me, that was the biggest driver when I applied and really met the team. At the time, I was able to fly out at the time and do an on-site interview. I just felt really like I could really contribute there. And so I was also wanting to deliver in terms of being able to be successful in the role, but I felt like I could grow and be part of that community. And community fit for me personally was also another big driver. So that's something to kind of take into consideration. But for me at the time, it was my biggest. And I wish I had advice like I'm hearing here from the panel when I was looking for a job. I didn't even think about some of the other aspects at the time when I applied. And of course, I know better now. too, just from my own experiences. But I think even attending a session like this, it kind of helps you think about a little bit more about what, is the best fit for you as an individual applying for a role, and kind of where you want to go in your career and what you want to do. So again, that fit and that kind of that match, that best match, I think, for not only the short term, but also thinking about longer term, like, can you grow in that company or in that position? That's also something to take into consideration. And that's something I thought about. For me, I thought I could be successful at the job, but I could think about next steps as well, when I entered in Monsanto at the time, and could think about a future there too. So for me, that was also a really strong driver for that first job.
Yeah, so for me, I sort of thought I had a non-negotiable with I wanted to stay in the Midwest. I knew the Midwest. I knew like it was cheaper cost of living there, and I kind of knew, what things would cost me and how much I could make. And then when I got the opportunity out on the West Coast, I really didn't know about like how much cost of living was really going to be. I knew it was more expensive, and then did try to negotiate salary, but my estimates were like way off for how high you could get a salary, because we're sort of Bay Area. So I am sort of competing with big tech company people for rent and things like that. So the one good thing is, I get equity in the company. And so that was a big driver. And, it's plenty to live here. The salary is still good to live here and save and everything. So yeah, I kind of had some unknowns more than non-negotiables. And then trying to remember the rest of the question. What
aspects were non-negotiables, and what did you have to be flexible on?
Yeah, and then as people have said, fit, and I think like direction of the company and everything, those are non-negotiables. And just because you've taken a job doesn't mean that you have to stay there. If it's not a good fit, be willing to see that it's not a good fit and apply somewhere else. Luckily, I got a good fit, so.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what the other panelists have said. I think one thing for me that was really important was the people in the team. Who is your manager? How do you get along with them? How do you work with the rest of the team? How do you collaborate with people? And that's something that I wanted to be really strong and was really important to me. So when I came to interview at Pairwise, that was definitely something that, I was asking questions about and looking for. And that was a really good fit for me here. In addition, being able to stay connected with the research community, there's lots of different types of research. I was hoping to, continue going to conferences and continue learning. And that's something that I've been very fortunate to find where I am, where I'm encouraged to go to conferences, encouraged to present research, to, be transparent in what we're doing here. So those are all things that were really important to me, along with all of the other things I think people already mentioned.
Thanks. And the next question is, have any of you participated in any extracurriculars such as fellowships, internships, or other activities outside of your PhD program to develop transferable skills? So things like presenting or team management. And so this is kind of related. Someone had a question in the chat about the value of doing an internship, whether it's extending their PhD studies. So I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but I guess Jitendra, we'll start with you. Is there any extracurricular programs that you did during your PhD that were helpful?
I kind of did a little bit, but it was from academia to academia. Like I did internship for my master's, for my PhD, I had fellowship. But I did volunteering during my PhD, my postdocs, and what I did during those days were really good. I had learning, so like I was being substitute teacher when there is no, someone is absent, or participating in market science when I'm educating farmers about what we are doing as a scientist. So I was part of U Market Science, which was University of Minnesota Market Science program. So that was a very good thing for me, provided opportunity to learn, interact with farmers, understand what they think about us and how we can improve. Then also I was involved in bringing people from underrepresented community to research. So those all were very different experiences, and also improved my skill sets in terms of how to communicate and connect and understand people.
So I would say probably the biggest help that I had in terms of especially like finding a job before or like close to when I'm graduating was participating in a industry academia sort of mentoring program. So I was in the Bayer Mentoring Fellowship when I was in grad school. Annie was actually my mentor for that. So it was really great working with Annie. She helped me a lot on like interviewing skills, working with my CV. Sort of helping me like touch up language and sort of where should I focus on for skills and how should I like word things. So I would really recommend looking for some kind of program like that, or if you already know someone in industry, you could maybe just ask them like, hey, could you look at my resume or look at my cover letter or something. A lot of people definitely be willing to do that. I would also say like brought up several times, but like go to conferences, present research at conferences. Like if there's either scientific societies or an organization like PlantGENE, getting involved with that could be very helpful for getting experience, in sort of doing presenting, the examples, presenting team management, just meeting people and sort of building connections. I think that's all very, very helpful. I also think like aside from that, it's very helpful to just generally be very intellectually curious. So even if it's not directly related to your pathway to graduation for your degree, like collaborating, working with other people in your program or at your university, just on it doesn't have to necessarily be something that's going to lead to a paper directly, but I think just like cultivating that kind of curiosity can be very helpful and also give you a wider background than just your very specific project that you're working on.
Think it's
And
over. Yeah, I think it's
over to you.
Yeah, so I'll just maybe add on a couple other opportunities. When I was some of the experiences that I had when I was doing my PhD that was extracurricular that I think was really helpful kind of in that development space for me was I was in the plant breeding and plant genetics program at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And so we actually had a graduate student kind of council or basically kind of informal group. And we did have an opportunity to I helped organize. I was the president for a year. We got elected, and we tried to organize some tours of industry. So at the time, Monsanto was right down the street from us, one of their facilities, the Agricitas facility there. And so we got to take a tour of that facility and kind of get to go to different places and get to start to meet individuals. And start to get connected more into the community. Again, this was some time back. And so that was something that was really helpful for me just to try to get and meet individuals and kind of get connected there. I also participated at the time, we also had an informal women in science group there. And so that was also really good to meet other people across at the university, just really meet others that are involved in different aspects of science. And so there sometimes you can get really focused on your own work and kind of individuals that you work with there. But, we worked with, the plant pathology department, the botany department, the agronomy department, and just got to meet more individuals and start to get connected and see what else might be out there. And so I think personally, if you can do an internship, or as Frank kind of mentioned now, from the company perspective, being part of a mentoring program, I think the more you can get connected with individuals that are in industry, or even sometimes industry can host a field event or something where you can go to their lab and meet people. I think you get more of a sense of what it's like to even have a role like that, or understand what that might look like. And that might help you refine, what you're interested in and what types of roles may suit you.
Yeah, during grad school and postdoc, I didn't really do that many things directly related to trying to find a career or mentoring. But I would say that the people that I saw take a fellowship at a company, it seemed to be a very good foot in the door to get into the company, and also, as Annie said, get an idea for what the company's like. But I've seen a lot of those be very successful, and if I was doing it all over again, I would definitely take one if it was offered.
Yeah, I agree with Morgan. I think, taking up these industry internships are a great idea. It's not something that I did in grad school, but it is something that's available at a lot of companies. Pairwise has internships every summer, so we'll take one intern for the delivery tech team, one for the transformation team, one from lots of other teams as well. I know Bayer, Incidental, lots of other companies do the same. These are generally like 10-week internships, so it's really not that long, and I think you can learn a whole lot when you do that. And it really is worth it if you're able to do so. For what I did during my PhD, so I think two things that were really good were stakeholder engagement. So I was working with a lot of growers, practicing presenting to farmers in the area, people who weren't just, directly in my field. And I think it's great to learn how to talk to people who aren't just, immediately, in your department and are scientists. And then I also led a large scientific collaboration group. So it was a collaboration between multiple different labs in different countries. And again, just being able to communicate to diverse audiences, to bring people together and keep a team going, I think is something that's very helpful. So if you're able to get involved in collaborations that are going on in your labs, I think that's something that you can come into industry with a good idea of, how to work as a team.
Thanks.
I agree with all the panelists talking about like build your network, take opportunity to do an internship or attend a workshop like this. You could hear different perspective. I just want to talk a little bit about the transferable soft skills, and often we did not think about it. Like example, like if you're doing TA, you are presenting to different audience, you are working with a group of other TA to do that, like how to collaborate, and then also that those kinds of opportunity would also help you think about how you best manage your time, and that's a really key soft skill you would use in like anywhere in your life. And for myself, one thing I did think about this other type of soft skill is collaborating with others. The lab I was in is very big lab, so working with rest of the team, working with our collaborator outside the team, and those are all very, very good transferable skills. And so when you interview, don't forget to talk about those. And as a PhD or postdoc, you also manage your projects, and people tend to forget you actually have a very good project management skill you could share when you're looking for roles. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, everyone. So we're getting close to the end of the hour. I have two more questions, one from the prepared, and then there were some questions from the chat that I wanted to ask. So any advice or suggestions for participants who are interested in industry? We'll start with Frank.
So I would say, and this is maybe advice even if you're not interested in industry, but you should tell your major professor that you're working for what your plans are, especially like relatively early on. If you're sure you want to go into industry, they can not always, but oftentimes they can help you, or at least point you towards someone else that knows more or maybe has more connections that can help you. So in my case, Heidi knew that like Bill was going to be sort of posting these like postdoc positions. So she told me kind of early on, like, hey, this is something to look out for relatively early. So I'd say that's a big one, is just like, don't make it a surprise for your major professor. And I'd also say, again, talk with people at conferences, go to conferences when you can, talk with people from industry there. And, you know, that makes some connections, even if they don't directly, you know, lend you a job or anything like that. It'll still give you a little bit of insight into the people that you're maybe applying to jobs to work for. So a lot of the people at Corteva that I work with now, I at least had a feeling for what they were like because I had met them previously at conferences and talked to them. And that's true for other companies and lots of academic labs. So you can get a little bit of a feeling for that work environment that you might be going into. So I would say for me, those are the two big things.
Yeah, I'll echo what Frank said. I think for me, from my own experience, I think if you can meet people from industry, like at conferences or have an experience, I think an internship, or if that's possible for you, or a co-op is possible for you, then you get that experience working at that company. I think that also kind of lets you know, like, are you a good fit for a possible role? You'll know if roles are coming up. You'll be a little bit closer to kind of what's going on within that space, if that's even possible. But again, even if that's not possible for you, anytime you can try to connect. I also put out there LinkedIn. Using some other opportunities like LinkedIn, you'll see, you know, a lot of companies, almost every company has postings on LinkedIn. They'll kind of talk about what's going on at the company there as well. So you can kind of get a sense there and make some connections in through that as well, because I know not everyone can travel to every conference, and those are usually yearly. So you may, when you're looking, that might time out for you. PlantGENE, other opportunities like that, try to get connected in through that network of others. And that will also help you kind of understand and get that connections to understand if, you know, roles are coming up and if you're the best fit for those types of roles.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone else here has said. There was one site that I was using, Ag Careers. They sort of are an aggregator of all the different openings in different companies. I think the PlantGENE website is great as well. And then for conferences, I actually met somebody at a conference who offered me an internship, unfortunately, a month after I graduated, and you had to be a graduate student to get it. So that could have paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone else is saying. You know, use your networks. If there are people in your program who have graduated recently that you know that like have gone into industry, like reaching out to them, asking them questions, talking to them, I think is always good. Morgan mentioned this earlier, which is just to apply early. I know there's lots of things happening during the last 6 months of your PhD, and you know, it's always really busy, but prioritizing that and, you know, making sure that you're sort of doing those job searches on LinkedIn or any other site, getting those PlantGENE notifications, and then applying for those jobs. Like when you see one that you're interested in, just go ahead and do it right then. You know, don't wait a couple of weeks, because by then, you know, the interviews might already be past the second round and it might be, you know, too late. So doing that early and quickly, I think, is important.
Yeah, I would just schedule weekly, look for jobs and apply for jobs.
I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, I think same here. So whatever all the panelists said, go for internship if you can go during your graduate studies. That's the best way to get to know people, and also if industry is suitable to you or not, fit to you or not. That way you also learn, rather than applying, you will have perspective in your mind that what is needed and how you are fit there, how you can contribute there. So yes, go for internship. If you cannot, if you are already graduated and you are in postdoc, look for program which again gives you exposure to industry, like B4U program, and there are other programs. So yeah, just stay open for both programs and just get exposure so you know what industry role look like.
May I make a quick comment? I saw one question around internship or co-op, and I think it might be different for different company. In Bayer, internship is 2 to 3 months, and co-op is 6 months, like 5 to 6 months. So it would be also like discussion with your professor whether that either of the time frame could potentially work for yourself.
Yeah, thanks for adding that, Peizhen. There were two questions about visas and green cards. So that's kind of what people, oh, industry, you have to be a US citizen. I've kind of heard that a lot from peers. Is that a myth? Is that kind of accurate to how industry tends to operate? I'll just open this up to anyone who wants to answer.
I think I will start. We do hire people with the I think there are OPTs and currently for international students it's 3 years, and then internally we have like H1 routes or like different routes to help those colleagues potentially get a visa status. So it's a mess. You don't have to be a citizen or green card to apply for a role.
I think generally being in the US already makes things a lot easier. Depends on what the role is. But if you're not in the US, it sort of adds barriers. And you'd have to be like a very, very good fit. Then we've had people here who've gotten their green card while at our company. And we support that. And yeah, so I don't think you need it. Especially you don't need a green card because a lot of our employees do not have it.
All right. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I think, yeah, green card is definitely not a barrier because I have friends at Bayer who are still either on visa like H1 or OPT. So yeah, just apply if you are a good fit. Industry will hire you. That's not a barrier.
Great, thanks. Okay, so we are at the end of the hour. I just want to say thank you to our panelists again for sharing their experience and just talking a bit about your career path. I found it really insightful. I hope our attendees did too. And then just a reminder to everyone, we do have a PlantGENE discussion forum. So you do have to be a member to access it. If you go to the website and log in, you'll see all the instructions and pages. Thank you, Kumar, for putting the link in the chat. So Kumar just put a link in the chat there where you can see the discussion forum. So if you have any questions or you'd like to continue the discussion further, that's a great place. And yeah, so I just want to thank everyone again for joining, and I'll see you at our next event. PlantGENE would like to thank the National Science Foundation for their support. If you would like to learn more, please visit their website at nsf.gov.